Hey everybody, welcome to MREA Mastermind Book Club. Today's session 10, Net a Million, Leads and Listings, pages 217 through 233. Now, I'm going to trust that you're getting out as we speak your MREA book. You're getting out your highlighter and a pen. You're getting ready to rock and roll because we're going to dive deep into these two areas of Net a Million this week. Now, what you're going to find in this Net a Million section, guys, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is once you've put the models into place, implemented them, this is where we go from making a million to actually netting a million. And we'll talk more about that here shortly. Now, let's dive in. You guys, we're going to start, like we said, on page 217. Now, let's jump right in. The top of 217, the very first sentence, follow with me. The thought of big success is exciting. The thought of the challenges that might be encountered along the way to big success can be frightening. Now, guys, here's what we know. We know that everybody wants success. Everybody wants to have success in a big, big way. Everybody does. It's not a mystery. Everybody wants to have that success. Everyone wants to net the $1 million, yet most people are afraid of what could happen in the process of getting there. Now, it could be a scary thing. We're going to talk more about that, but don't let that fear paralyze you or stop you. Here's what he says. He goes on to say, interestingly enough, for many people, it's quite possibly this fear of the unknown that sometimes holds them back. Now, I want you to write this down in the margin of your book because I was given this a long time ago. FEAR is an acronym for false evidence appearing real. FEAR is simply an acronym for false evidence appearing real. What the heck do we mean by that? It means that most times, when we're in the moment and we are fearful of something, when we look back, when we're past that, and we look back on that situation, very rarely does what we're actually fearful of come to pass. It's false evidence appearing real. And it creates a story. We create the story and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it prevents us from taking action. And typically what we're afraid of never actually comes to pass. So don't let fear hold you back, guys. Fear is a big thing that holds people from netting a million. Further on down the road there, he says this, on your way to implementing your 4 business models, you will discover that things don't always go as planned. No kidding. It's called life. Understanding these models is one thing. Successfully implementing them is another. It can't just be head knowledge. You understand there's lots of people that fundamentally and head-wise understand how these models works. It's a much smaller group of people, a significantly smaller group of people that don't just understand it, they can implement it and live it. And that's what we're talking about here is bridging that gap. That is the secret sauce from making a million to netting a million. Because if you're like me, you probably know lots of agents. You probably know lots of agents who make a million. Their businesses do the business that could generate $1 million worth of GCI. And yet their net income is abysmal. It's ridiculous. It's part-time wages. It's terrible. And so they've created a job. They don't have a business. So today we're talking specifically the difference between netting versus just making the million. How do we take that leap? Because when we take that leap, everything is possible. Now, further on there, he says this, right in the middle of 217, models tell you what to do and how to do it. So we know the importance of models. We talked about that. Models tell you what to do and how to do it, but they don't always address the challenges you'll face as you try to implement them. So guys, think of it this way. In a book called Made to Stick, great book, they talk about a theory that the military uses called commander's intent. And commander's intent, what they found was back in the day, long time ago, the military, they would give specific orders to all the troops, like down to you take this step, you take that step, you go here, you go there. And what they found is that method of planning couldn't anticipate or didn't work in room to anticipate what's going to go differently or unexpectedly on the battlefield. What's going to change when we're actually there? Because it's easy from the cheap seats to decide how we're going to get from point A to point B. It's really easy to come up with that plan. What we have to do, though, is allow for opportunity, allow for there to be the inevitable change of plans, the inevitable business and life happening. That's what here, guys. We have to take into account the fact that some things are going to pop up that we could not plan for. So understanding models, they tell you what to do and how to do it, but they don't always address the challenges you'll face as you try to implement them. So let's dive in there because that is really what's most important. We can have all the models in the world. This book is full of the best models in the world for your real estate business. And yet, you have to also plan for what life and the market will throw at you that you aren't anticipating in the moment of planning. Look on 218. Top of 218, he says, when I get clear, I lose my fear. If you guys don't have that circled and underlined in your book, you probably should. That's a huge part. When I get clear, I lose my fear. With this theme in mind, let's jump into the issues that you'll likely come across on your way to earning and ultimately netting $1 million. Now, just as an overview, we're going to come back to 218, but look at page 219. You're going to see a full list. This full list, these are all the pieces we're going to go over in the next few sessions. Today, we're just going over the leads and the listings, okay? We're just going over those first two, the first 8 actual points, the first 2 categories, leads and listings, okay? So there's a lot of them. There are a ton of them. However, we're going to dive deep into the first 8 today together. So look on 218, they're implementing the models. It's his third sentence there under that category. Following and implementing those models, meaning the ones we've learned so far, following and implementing those models will get you to earn $1 million. However, it's the mastering of those models that can take you all the way to net $1 million. Now, you guys, if you remember from our earlier sessions, some of our first sessions, he talked about the difference between understanding and mastering. The path to mastery is the gateway to ultimate success. Mastery means that we don't just understand it, we're doing it in our business, and we're doing it at an incredibly high level, right? So that's a big gap. There's a lot of people that say they've read this book. There's a lot of people that say they understand fundamentally the models of this book, yet it's a smaller group of people who are actually implementing it at a high level and have mastered those models inside of their business. Now, on page 219, again, figure 2, you're going to see the complete outline. The first one we're going to go through starts on 220, and that's under the lead section. Look at the top of page 220. He says this: as you move toward mastering lead generation, which is the most important thing in your business, by the way, side note, as you move toward mastering lead generation, you will encounter 4 issues that may become obstacles between you and your highest levels of success. When you overcome these 4 challenges, there should be no limit to how many leads your real estate business can generate. Now, we're going to go deep here, but guys, this is worth a pause. That first paragraph on the top of 220 is worth a pause, because you master that, everything else becomes insignificant or irrelevant, because everything else can be delegated and leveraged out. When you have enough leads, you have revenue to be able to leverage out all of the other pieces. So this is a huge component. It's why it's the first of the 3 L's of leads, listings, and leverage. Leads is your business. That side of the business is your business. Now look at number 1, 220. Sustaining a solid lead generation program that emphasizes marketing and consistently increases the number of leads. Remember, when the book was written, it was marketing-based, prospecting enhanced. In today's world, that's been flipped. Now it should be prospecting-based, marketing enhanced. Both have their place. What we're talking about is, which are you emphasizing most? Now, under section 1 on 220, he says this: the biggest challenge you will face in building your sales business to a high level is continuing to focus on lead generation. Underline this next part: no matter how many leads you have or how busy you become. Once a high number of leads is being generated, there is a tendency to settle for that number and then devote more time and energy on servicing that business. Guys, here's what you need to know. What he just talked about on 220 is the real estate income roller coaster. It's the real estate income roller coaster. It's the reason a lot of agents have really big months in income, and then the next 2 months they're broke. And then they have really big months in income, and then they're broke again. You understand what they're doing is they're trading tomorrow's business while servicing today's. They're trading tomorrow's business for today's. They're getting so caught up in servicing the business that's right in front of them, they stop doing the activities that create the business 30, 60, 90, and 120 days in front of them. This is one of the oldest problems in our business for most people building this business. Building a business in our industry, this is one of the biggest pitfalls, one of the biggest reasons people get in and then out of the business is because they have high income months and low. And the reality is, if they would just simply do the activity that generates the business, like he says, no matter how many leads you have or how busy you become, when you consistently do your lead generation, no matter what, everything else takes care of itself. That's why this is such an incredibly important part of your business. Look on 221. The second paragraph there. Millionaire real estate agents never lose focus on lead generation. Never. For them, lead generation always, underline always, always comes first. It is the first and most important thing. Until you've done your lead generation that day, you've not done your job. If you go home any day and you're building a business in real estate, if you go home any day and you cannot honestly tell yourself that you did your lead generation job, you've failed yourself that day. You've not done your job. You've had free coffee. You've messed around, you've screwed around, you've wasted a lot of time, you've not done your job if you can't every day say, I did my lead generation activities that day. That is your job. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. That's this business. That's your job. That's my job. That's our job in this industry and building this business. We are not in the real estate business. We are in the lead generation business. He goes on to say, they understand that to be most effective, lead generation needs to be a couple things: systematic, consistent, and sustained. So we're going to talk about that, but guys, underline that too. They understand that to be most effective, lead generation needs to be three things: systematic. We need to have a system built around doing our lead generation. What do we do? How do we do? When do we do it? What is our process for documenting this? What's our process for holding it accountable, which we're going to talk about? But it must be systematic. There must be a system that it's built upon. Number two, it must be consistent. Sporadic lead generation will mean sporadic income. Your lead generation will always determine the level of consistency you have in income. For agents that come to me and they're inconsistent in their income, it's not hard to see that they are always inconsistent in their lead generation activities. Guys, this is simple, not easy. Your consistency of income is always a reflection of your consistency of your lead generation activities. And the third thing that lead generation must be is sustained. It has to be done long-term over time. You understand that even on the path of the 7 levels of the MREA, which we're going to talk about in subsequent sessions, even at that last level, the 7th level, which few people reach, but even at that level, the one thing the MREA doesn't give up is lead generation. One of the last things they give up is listings. The one thing they never give up is control over and consistency and accountability around the lead generation activities. They have to always happen, because that is the consistency of the revenue of your business, especially if you are not working in the business at some point and you get the luxury of just working on it. Now look at page 222, number 2, tracking and converting leads through others. Also, one of the biggest challenges real estate agents have when they're making the jump from going a single agent to being a team. One of the biggest challenges I've seen in 14 years of agents having is this one right here. And it ties back to the very beginning. Remember in subsequent sessions, session 2 or 3, I believe, where we talked about, Gary's talking about the fact that people don't think that the level of service that I provide as a single agent can be maintained if I have a team. Meaning that I'm thinking if I have a team, my service level of my people goes down. And what Gary taught us in this book is actually it's the exact opposite. When we hire the right people who share our standards, share our vision, share our everything, they are a reflection of us in the business. When we do that, our clients win because they're getting more people, which pushes the level of service up, not down. They're getting access to specialists and more of them. That's going to help them with their experience and help them with a higher quality deliverable. That's what a team does. Yet here we go right here. If you as a single agent, you get through that part of it in your mental block, you get that pushed aside and you say, okay, I can wrap my head around the fact that succeeding through others and I can deliver a better service to my people with a team of people. You get through that, that's only part 1. Part 2 then is this, tracking and converting, what does it say? Leads through others. You might be the best lead generator and lead converter in the world, but until you learn how to do that through other people, you are your ceiling of achievement. There will never be success at a high level for you. That's what he's talking about here in number 2. Look what he says, middle of that paragraph. By this point in your career, you may well have mastered this process of turning leads into closed business. You may have. Good for you. Here's your sticker. Great job. But it doesn't matter if it's only you who knows how to do that. Look down at the bottom there, the last couple sentences. Now, to navigate successfully the path from earn $1 million to net $1 million, you will need to get those same great results through your staff. Through your staff. This is on page 222. You have to get results through your staff. You understand that this is leadership. This is why some people don't make this journey. This is why some people don't successfully get here. Because it's easy to succeed ourselves. It's much harder to succeed through other people. And if you're a driver and you're dominant and you're pushing, your natural tendency is going to be to succeed around people. I'll just do it. It's faster if I just do it. I'm not throwing rocks. I'm a similar behavior, right? Leadership says I have to slow down and I have to learn how to win through people, because until I win through people, I am my ceiling and my achievement. You understand? I can't duplicate or scale my success if it's just me, because I'm just one person. You're just one person. Learning how to effectively win through people is the only way you're going to have big success on a real estate team. Now, what we also see is there's teams who build and they can hide this. There's rainmakers who can hide this really well for a time. They can hide this really well. And their natural charisma and energy and skill, they can hide the fact they don't know how to win through people for a time. Yet what I can tell you is team members will never stay long-term in an organization where the leader consistently desires to win around them and not through them. They will not stay. They will not stay. Hear me clearly. They will not stay. So it doesn't matter if you build a big team. You might be able to fake it for a matter of a short period of time, a matter of months. At some point in time, if you can't figure out how to win through people, your team will crumble. Your people will leave. Your talent will leave you. And I don't want that for any of you. That's why this is such an important part. Look on page 223. Towards the top. It begins by believing that your results can, in fact, be duplicated through others. So if you don't think that's possible, start there. Don't pass go. Do not collect $200. You have to start there, because it is possible to succeed through people. It is possible to get your level of success and duplicate that through people on your team. It is a possibility. It's determined by your ability to teach them what you do and how you do and why you do. That's on you, not on them. Now, for a little further down there, knowing this, your first task is to make sure the right people, true talent, are turning your leads into closed business. Taking the time up front to identify, recruit, and train talent is crucial to the success of your lead conversion program. But, he goes on to say, but, understand this, hiring talent is not your only issue. Ultimately, your ongoing responsibility in this regard will be to assure proper tracking and converting. Now, let me speak to those of you who right now, when you hear that, say, you know what, that's great, but I didn't track any of my stuff and I was incredibly successful. Awesome. Good on you. You just didn't push far enough to hit your ceiling, because there's a ceiling coming. It doesn't matter how good you are. You have to have a system and mechanism in place for tracking and holding your people accountable. And we're going to talk more about that here shortly. We have to track our results. How many calls did I make? Of those calls, how many conversations did I have? Of those conversations, how many appointments did I set? Of those appointments set, how many appointments did I go on? Of those appointments I went on, how many converted into a contract? And of those contracts, how many converted into a closed piece of business? Tracking these numbers is not just important for you. It becomes even more important when you're succeeding through a group of people. It has to happen. So even if this is not your natural tendency, it has to become yours if you're going to be winning through people. Look what he says there below. Now, I literally have this underlined and italicized. Guys, this is big. 223 towards the bottom of the page, second to last paragraph. With this system in place, and we're talking about the tracking system that I just went through. With this system in place, you'll be able effectively to train and consult with your staff on lead conversion that meets your standards. So my first question here, what are your standards? What are your standards for lead conversion? Because if you don't have standards, that is your standard. If your team, if I couldn't walk into your room right now with your people, and if I couldn't ask the question, what's the team standard for lead conversion? If they couldn't all tell me that fast, you don't have one, you've lost. What is your lead conversion standard? It's your job as the leader to set that standard. It's your job as leader to cast that vision. It's your job as leader to consistently communicate that message. What is your standard? Because not having one is one. What is your lead conversion standard? He goes on to say, with this data in hand, you can more easily set performance standards and hold your team members accountable to them. This is the beauty, guys. For those of you that really like people and you want people to like you, this is your key. This accountability is based on performance, not whether I like the person or not. You don't have to be the bad guy. You're holding people accountable to your conversion standard. If you don't have a standard, then it becomes, or easily becomes, you just don't like me. You're picking on me. You like that person better. When I have standards, I'm holding you to the standards. And as Gary Keller has said, and I've shared on these calls before, I'm loving, my standards are not. You should have the exact same mindset. You can love the person and not be in business with them. I'm loving, my standards are not. But if you don't have standards, you've already lost the game. Now he goes on to say this, and the real beauty of this system is that you will always, always absolutely know what is happening in your business, who is getting the job done, and more importantly, who is not. Underline this last sentence in this paragraph. When the numbers are always in the open, it is much harder to hide behind what? Hide behind excuses. When the numbers are always in the open, it's much harder to hide behind excuses. Let me give you a real-world example of this. In our expansion organization at United Home Group, our numbers are all in the open. Partners reporting contacts, turning in their numbers, how many dials, how many appointments, everything that we track is all in the open. Oh, by the way, for our regional directors and our leadership, everything is all in the open. Their numbers are stripped down to the most naked, bare form every single week on these calls because there is nothing to hide behind at that point. The numbers tell the story. That is our scoreboard. Do you have that level of consistency, communication, and standard accountability in your organization? And if not, now's a great time to do it. Now, look on page 224. The first full paragraph in there, it starts with, an agent once told me, this is big, guys, an agent once told me in a consulting call that she didn't have time to follow up on all the leads that were coming in. I'm sure there's lots of people that are listening to this that feel the same way at times. She said she had stacks of notes and lead sheets on her desk filled with names of people who had called. We suggested that she imagined those stacks as piles of money that were burning. It was her money in those piles, and she had just lit a match. She immediately got the picture, hired 2 buyer specialists, and had her marketing director put in place a lead tracking and conversion system. She no longer has stacks of money burning on her desk. Now, let's just pretend for a sec that you don't have lead sheets that you physically write on. I guarantee you have internet leads sitting somewhere. This is the same exact thing. How many thousands of internet leads do you have that have gone untouched, that are not being dripped on consistently, that are not being worked like they should be, and you are burning money? You're burning the agent's money, you're burning your money, you're burning the organization's money, you are burning money. That's his point. That's why this is all so important. If you can't tell I'm passionate about this, I'm going to tell you I'm passionate about this because this is your money that you are torching right now. That's why this is so important. And I've seen so many people, so many good people be so driven to build a team, and they spend so much money to create leads and opportunity, and then they have no system in place to hold those accountable who are being given the opportunities. And they are burning their money. Guys, don't pass go here. If you don't have a system in place, that is the only thing that matters in your business right now. What is your lead conversion standard? Are your numbers and those of your team members out in the open? And are you having regular communication around those standards and the performance of those numbers? That is your only thing. If you don't have those, check, check, check. If you can't say yes to all those, that is your homework right now. Don't do anything else. Start there. But for time's sake, we're going to keep going on the call. Now look at bottom of 224. Number 3, the third point, protecting your lead generation focus time. Another big struggle for a lot of people, myself included. I'm not throwing rocks here. This is a big struggle. Look what he says. While time really isn't money, it is convertible into money. Ultimately, lead generation is the most dollar productive activity you can do for your real estate sales business. Underline that sentence. That should be in communication with every one of your people on your team. Lead generation is the most dollar productive activity you can do for your real estate business. For those who are seeking real estate success at a very high level, lead generation time must be considered the most important time on the calendar. And as such, you always know something's important when an author says, and as such. So look what happens after this. And as such, it will need to be jealously guarded and protected. Because life seems to love to offer up the unexpected, guarding this time is never as easy to do as it may seem. Here's what we mean by this. I'm always amazed with agents that I get the privilege of working with and coaching when I call them during what should be their lead generation time and they answer. What the heck are you doing? Like, I'll text you if something's on fire or somebody's bleeding. Outside of that, you don't stray from what you're doing. Lead generation time is that, or should be, that sacred. You have to guard it as if it's that important because it is that vital to the success of your business. Further down in the middle of that section, he says this: one of the first things always to hit the back burner for most agents is lead generation. Why? Because when people don't truly understand the importance of lead generation, it can masquerade as an optional activity rather than as the core foundational discipline that it is. Now, rhetorical question here, but how many people inside of your organization or on your team feel that lead generation is an optional activity? And my guess is, if you're being honest with yourself, because I can't hear you right now, but my guess is if you're being honest with yourself, it's more people than any of us would like. So then up to you as the leader, it's up to you or the leader of your business or your organization, whatever your context in this framework of levels 1 to 7 is, wherever you're out on this path, your job then is how do I as the leader, whether I'm speaking to myself or my organization or whatever you are in between that, how do I convey the message and relay the importance, the fact that lead generation time is not optional and that it's mission critical. Now, also, look at the bottom of 225. To avoid this pitfall, meaning to avoid that, here's the answer. You need to make a commitment to block off substantial, regular, underline regular, substantial regular time in your calendar and devote it to lead generation. This is the time you use to prospect, follow up on existing leads, and develop and implement marketing plans. Here's what I wrote down in my notes here, guys, and you can see I have notes at the very bottom there. Something I heard a long time ago, and I love it. It says, show me your calendar and your checkbook, and I'll be able to tell what your true priorities are. How you spend your time and your money tells me what your priorities really are. Not what you want them to be, not what you would say they were if Gary Keller asked you. Your calendar and your checkbook show me what your actual priorities are. So my advice to you in your own life is do a calendar audit. When I do my time blocking on my calendar, it's all color-coded. Green is lead generation activity. Yellow is teaching and coaching. Now, for my world, I should see more green and yellow than anything else. Blue is administrative stuff that I have to do, only I can do, and red is personal, doctor's appointments, kids stuff, whatever. But at the end of every week, I do a full audit of my week to see, based on the colors, how did I spend my time? Where did I spend most of my time this week? And I'm not going to lie to you, some weeks it sucks. Some weeks it is out of balance, just like yours. However, being intentional to look at that and do an audit every week just by looking at my calendar gets me refocused and forces me to double time the next week if I fell off a little bit the week before. Your calendar and your checkbook, how you spend your time and your money will always tell me your true priorities. Where are you investing your time and money? Look at page 226, number 4. Now, this number 4 could be one of the most critical from a strategic standpoint. Number 4 is this: weighing your options, the process of discovering what works and what doesn't work for you. Now we're going to spend some time here because this one impacts a lot of people. So in that section, the second sentence, lead generation is an art as well as a science. Successful lead generators pay attention and become very knowledgeable over time about what works and what does not work for them in their market. Now here's what we know. What works in your market for lead generation may not be as effective in others. Some third-party lead generation systems, tools, websites are very effective in one market and completely ineffective in others. There's no one-size-fits-all. So what he's getting at here is the importance of always tracking, holding accountable, and measuring what's working and what isn't, because what's working today, a year from now, may be significantly less effective. So not just doing something because we've always done it, and also not doing it because somebody else says it's incredibly effective. He goes on to say this: lead generating success is not purely creative. Underline that part, for the love of God, please. Lead generation success is not purely creative. A lot of people fall into the trap. Again, it's that creativity before models in the beginning of this book. A lot of people fall into the trap of that in their lead generation as well. I'm going to create a really cool new algorithm and website. I'm going to create this whole thing that does all the work for me so I don't have to do anything. And they spend so much time developing something cool and creative that they've wasted a ton of time, that if they would have just implemented that in the basic, tried and true methods of lead generation that work, they'd have the money they needed to hire somebody else to come up with some of the creative stuff. Now he goes on to say this: like so many other aspects of this business, it requires a system. All parts of your business must be built on a system. Again, like we've talked about, the E-Myth Revisited, a great book. If you're not naturally a systems person, that is a great book for you to pick up and read. Because the level and the ability of the systems you have in your business, they also are the ceiling of achievement for your business. Can they scale? How big can they scale? He goes on to say at the bottom of 226, in that last paragraph, so many agents do spur of the moment, idea of the month marketing and prospecting. They adopt new lead generation programs from the latest, greatest, best, and most creative idea ever seminar, or else they reinvent their program based on some can't miss, pay for itself, instant success program. Then they're often running, spending money, discarding previous strategies, and going whole hog on their latest inspiration. Guys, we are salespeople's best dreams. We as real estate agents are salespeople's best dreams. If you haven't noticed, there are always people wanting to sell you something. The latest, greatest pill, potion, and tool that means you don't have to do the work and it'll be done for you. It'll happen for you. It'll print money for you. We are their best dream because we are suckers for this stuff. What he's saying here is don't get drawn into that line of thinking. Stick with what works. Measure the results. Hold it accountable. Look on page 227. Now, he's talking about the difference now of the MREAs. What does the successful millionaire real estate agent do versus those people that we just talked about? He says they always begin with the tried and true. They do that first. He doesn't say they only do that. He says they do that first. They build their foundation there, tried and true. Models before creativity. They do that first. And they do it with a plan, a budget, a message, and a target audience. It is very strategic, calculated, and measured. Okay? He goes on to say they don't discount a program that does not yield immediate results, nor do they fall wholeheartedly in love with one that does. They play Switzerland. I'm not going to bail or pull out too fast if it's not producing the results that it should or the results I expect it to. I'm going to give it a reasonable term to produce results. At the same time, if something I do produces a really fast result, I'm not going to buy into the fact that it's the tried and true silver bullet method either, because it can fizzle out and die just as quickly. Now, he says the ones who look like marketing and prospecting geniuses do it consistently over time and meticulously track and source their leads. They then weigh the cost of their plan against their net results so they can get a clear sense of their cost per lead. Tracking, sourcing, and costing over time provides the information needed to judge accurately the merits of a particular method. I don't care the results you've had on a new lead generation program in the first 10 days. It's irrelevant. Talk to me at 6 months, and then I'll start believing what I'm hearing. Then I'll start believing that that's an actual indicator of what's likely to come with that program. So when you're going into lead generation, start with the basics and fundamentals first. Build a system around those to do those consistently over time. Then and only then do you work in extra avenues of lead generation. And when you work those in, you determine an appropriate amount of time to give them to expect results, and you hold them accountable to do just that. Look on page 228 now. Now we're moving on to the listing section. And number 5 is knowing the minimum number of seller listings you must list each month. Now we know from the economic model, we worked backwards into that number. So we should have that number in our business. That's not what he's talking about here. We know we should have that number in our business. Look what he says about a quarter of the way down that paragraph. However, the real estate business is cyclical on market shift. So while the fundamental economic model remains sound, the key numbers are usually in a state of flux. Now, what does he mean by that? He means that we have the economic model, we have the numbers, we broke it down. We know how many listings, in this case, how many listings we need to list or take each month. What he's saying, though, is as the market shifts and it fluxes a little bit, that number may need to shift up or down with that, right? So the only way we're going to know that is by investing in, inspecting, and spending time with that economic model and comparing it to what's happening in the market around us. When we do that consistently every month, we're going to know that we're on track because we're going to be able to adjust that based on what the market's doing. Here he goes on to say, what this means is that it will take on your part considerable attention to current market trends and conditions to know how many listings you'll need to take in any particular month to meet your goals. In the classic words of Wayne Gretzky, you must skate to where the puck will be. That's what he's talking about. You don't skate to where it is. You skate, you get ahead of it, going to where it's going to be. You need to become that economist of choice. Are you a student of your market? Are you a student of watching the key indicators that are most predictive or likely to show you what's coming in terms of shifting in the market? What impacts other things around us are going to have in our market? How is the market going to change? You're never going to get it 100%. But are you skating to where the puck will be? The only way you can do that is by becoming a student of the market, a student of the economy. He goes on to say the variables you must watch are made very clear from the model. He gives you what to watch right here, guys. The percentage of appointments that will generate a listing and the percentage of listings that will in turn sell. So what he's saying is when I'm watching those two metrics and I'm watching my conversion rate from appointments to listings taken and listings taken to listings sold, when I start seeing those percentages go down, meaning I'm converting at a lower rate, which will happen when the market shifts, no matter how good you think you are, it will happen. Those percentages will go down. If I'm tracking those numbers, perfect. I can start seeing when the market's shifting. I can also take measures to counter that and change those numbers to make sure that my business and my goals are met even in the midst of a shifting market. The problem is most agents aren't tracking those numbers, and so they're caught off guard, and by the time they figure it out, the market's already shifted way past them. Now look at the bottom of 229. Number 6. The listing the minimum number each month. What distinguishes the highest real estate sales business achievers from the rest is their insistence, not their hope, their insistence on hitting their goals. Next sentence down. They bring amazing urgency, persistence, and tenacity to their efforts. For them, there are no excuses, no hiding places, no victim behavior. Goal pursuit for them becomes a very black and white. Goals are met or they are not met. Vince Lombardi summed it up well when he said, winning is not a sometime thing, it's an all the time thing. So here's my question for you rhetorically again. When we just read through that section, there are no excuses, no hiding places, no victim behavior. Goals are either met or they're not. My question for you is that the level of expectancy and understanding around goals and goal setting and achieving that your team members have inside of your organization? Would this make them say, heck yeah, that's who we are? Or would this terrify them and say, oh my gosh, that's pretty rigid. You're kind of mean. Guys, this is what it has to be. This is what it has to be if you want to achieve results at a high level. And oh, by the way, when you are succeeding through people, you succeeding at a high level means they're surpassing their goals and succeeding at a high level as well. We owe it to them to create an environment that thinks this way. Because in this environment, they will accomplish their goals. And that's why they got into business with us. It's your responsibility to help that. How do you communicate effectively and how regular do you communicate that there are no excuses, no hiding places, no victims? Goals are black and white. They're either met or they're not met. It removes the emotion from the equation, guys. And I'm telling you, in business, especially in a team setting, that is so incredibly valuable. When we remove emotion from the equation, it's black and white. You either did or didn't do it. You hit it or you didn't hit it. And then what are we going to do to get back on track? When that can be the dialogue, even if you have to remove somebody from your organization, they can leave your team smiling if you're asking them to leave, and you can have a great relationship with them because they know that you care about them as a person. It just didn't work out with them as a salesperson in your organization. This is how we can let people go and have them still be advocates for our organization. This is how we can let people go and still have them sending referrals for agents to be a part of our organization. When we have an environment that's built upon standards, goals, and numbers and not based on emotion, your success becomes unlimited. Now, he goes on to say there, winning is a habit, unfortunately, so is losing. Underline that, please. Are you communicating that with your team members? That winning is a habit and so is losing. When I'm recruiting somebody, I'm looking at their track record and I'm asking about their past. What do I see more of? Failure or success? Winning or losing? It doesn't mean they're a bad person if they have a pattern of losing or if they have a habit of losing, but I'm definitely going to have a conversation around that. Because unless they have a desire to change that habit will continue when they're a part of my organization. Winning is a habit, so is losing. Look for those patterns. Now below there, he says this. These real estate agents deal with failure as a temporary setback. He's talking MREA agents, big successful agents. They deal with failure as a temporary setback on the path to reaching and exceeding their goals. You understand that failures shrink back when they hit failure or setbacks. People who do not achieve success, as soon as they taste any kind of a failure or something doesn't go quite as planned, they shrink back. That's not a winner. He's saying these agents deal with failure as a temporary setback on their path to reaching and exceeding their goals. They don't ignore failure. They learn from it and make a commitment not to repeat next time around the same mistakes that may have caused it. Failures can be a gift because they show us what not to do. No matter how many times I read that section of the book, I always think about Edison. 10,000 times it took to figure out the light bulb. And somebody said to him, oh my goodness, I don't know how you could fail 10,000 times. And he said, I didn't. I just figured out 10,000 ways that it wouldn't work. If he would have stopped, life would be a little bit different for us right now, guys. He didn't take failure as a permanent failure. He saw it as a temporary setback, and it just showed him what wouldn't work. And so he learned from it, he studied it, he recalculated, came up with a new strategy, and executed on that strategy. And he did that process 10,000 times. How many times are you willing to fail? How many times are you willing to fail before you succeed? That's a powerful question for you to ask yourself and for you to ask your team members. How many times are you willing to fail before you succeed? Because winners, people who have won at the highest level in life and business, winners are willing to fail as many times as it takes to get it right. Only you can answer that question for yourself. Look at page 231. Number 7, getting sellers to accept the team concept. Now, we're not going to go much in depth here, but it is important. It's absolutely important. Look at page 232. A couple of things that jumped out, and we'll go to the next section. In the 232, towards the top, lawyers, doctors, and most professionals all tend to work with the belief that the best services are provided by a team of specialists led by the head specialist. Here's what I want you to know. When you drive by any hospital and you see the parking area for the doctors, if we were standing there together, I am really confident, not in an egotistical way, but I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that I could point out to you looking at that parking lot who the specialists were versus who the general practitioners were. Now, why I say that is this. The specialists are driving the really expensive cars. They're driving the Lamborghinis, the Mercedes, the BMWs, the Audis. They're driving the very nice, expensive cars. And the general practitioners are driving cars that are nice, but they're average cars. Specialists, while having the same degree, get paid 2 to 10 times more than general practitioners. The reason is they deliver a higher level of service because they specialize in one area. Instead of a mile wide and an inch deep, they're an inch wide and a mile deep. They have a ton of experience and depth in their chosen specialty. And this is the same concept I've used for years in coaching teams on how to sell the team concept. If you had to have brain surgery right now, would you want a general practitioner or would you want the best brain surgeon in the country messing around with your noodle up there? You're going to want the specialist. And Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that's what we do here on our team, is we've created a team of specialists. So you're going to be working with the absolute best person in every aspect of the business because you deserve a specialist. Wouldn't you agree? Guys, here's the deal. You and your team must have scripts down to understand why the team approach and the team concept provides a higher level of service. If I came into your organization and asked your people how they sell the team concept, if they can't give me an answer right now, I know that you've already lost. And you have to understand people always compete from where they are. So if you're competing with single agents, the single agent is always, I promise you, always, no matter where your market is, they will always poke at you and say it's going to be impersonal as a team. You're going to get to deal with me here, but you're going to deal with who knows who on the team. They're always going to compete against what they don't have. So if you know that going into it, prep your people, arm your people, have clear communication, mission, and vision around the team concept, and make sure that all of your people are communicating that clearly with the consumer. Look at bottom of 232. Consistently marketing your seller listings for more leads. This is a big one, guys. Leveraging the marketing of your seller listings to generate buyer listings can sometimes be forgotten in a hot seller's market. Now, for a lot of you, currently, that's the market you're in. And so what he's saying here, if you look, we continue on 233, what he's saying here is it's really easy to take our eye off the ball that marketing those seller listings is not just to get the listings sold. That's a big part of it. It is. The second part, though, is to generate more listing leads and buyer leads for your team and for your organization. And in the hot market, we get so caught up in the fast pace of things that if we don't have a system that we follow each time for marketing a listing, we're losing opportunity. And that's what he goes on to say here. Look at 233. Second paragraph. In order to meet your big financial goals, the proper marketing of seller listings cannot just be about getting these listings sold. It is extremely important that this marketing also generate more buyer and seller leads, which you then capture and follow up on in a systematic fashion. When real estate markets get hot and listings sell in a matter of days, sound familiar, rather than weeks, many agents tend to focus entirely on getting their listings sold and forget that the listing is also a marketing vehicle. Now, the way that's easy or becomes easy to forget is if you don't have a system built around listing marketing. You understand that no matter how fast-paced the market gets, if you have a system that you're committed to working consistently every time, the pace of the market is irrelevant because the system dictates you do all these steps in this order and you know it gets done consistently every single time. So if this is you, if this is speaking to you in the hot market, you've missed opportunity by listing or marketing listings properly, all this is telling you is you just need to build a system around that part of your business and then have somebody that executes that system consistently so that regardless of the speed of the market, you know it's happening, you know you're putting your best foot forward and you're casting that net to generate as many leads as possible. Look at the next full paragraph down. As we've already covered, every house you list should have a marketing checklist attached. Now guys, he gives you one on figure 17. So if you don't have one, start there. It's better than what you have if you don't have one, okay? That you and your team follow regardless of the market. This marketing process should continue all the way through the offer pending period and will at time even serve to protect your sellers with backup offers. Even if that marketing generates inquiries after the sale of the house, those leads can be captured, handed off to your buyer assistants, or redirected to your other listings. Guys, here's what we know. It comes down to systems. It always has, and it always was. It's always going to come down to systems because if it's built on you, you will get busy, you'll get sick, life will happen, something will get in the way. And when your business is built on systems, it goes on and carries on and succeeds despite you, not because of you. So guys, thank you so much for being on the call today. Next week's call, session 11 is on Net a Million, the leverage section, pages 234 to 249. Have a great day, guys. We'll see you next week.